Before we start, I would just like to say that some of our content may be triggering for some of our listeners and viewers. If you need help, please see your GP or check out our show notes for a list of support services. While advice is given during these podcasts, this is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice. Neither the host nor the guests of this podcast may be held responsible for any action or claims in any way resulting from the information provided.
Hello and welcome to the Tough Mothers podcast and Tough Mothers TV. I'm your host, Dr. Jen. Hello and welcome to the Tough Mothers podcast and Tough Mothers TV. I'm your host, Dr. Jen. Today on the program, my guest is Tom Cronin. Tom is a meditation teacher, speaker, author, and producer of the movie The Portal. He's also a dad of twins, but I asked Tom to come on the program today not to share his journey into and through fatherhood, but to share with us how meditation can make motherhood easier for us. Tom taught me to meditate 7 years ago when I was in the grips of my postnatal breakdown. I have been meditating every day since. Meditation has literally changed my life. Today, Tom shares with us the benefits of meditation, what meditation can do for you to make motherhood calmer, and how it can bring you more happiness and joy. It really can. We also dispel some myths around meditation and highlight the importance of meditating during motherhood. I cannot stress this enough. And of course, we also chat about his book and film, The Portal, and his mission to get 1 billion people meditating to help create an enlightened world. All the links and information mentioned are available in the show notes, toughmothers.com/EP21. Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for being on the Tough Mothers podcast and Tough Mothers TV. I've been really excited to talk to you because, as I told the audience in the introduction, you were my meditation teacher. You introduced me to meditation 7 years ago. And I've told you before, it really changed my life. It was such an amazing experience. And I meditate every single day since the day I met you. And it's just, been profoundly life-changing. And I would like to start with how you found meditation and how it changed your life.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here, I must admit. It's always wonderful to share space with you, Jen. Meditation, it was really interesting how it did come into my world. It was one of those sort of strange epiphanies and magical divine interventions, I think, where I'd been in a pretty dark place for a while at that point in time. It was back in 1996, and for quite a few years I'd been working as a broker in finance, and it was very Wolf of Wall Street, very much the same scenes. Jordan Belfort, he started his career, who was the Wolf of Wall Street in 1987, the same year I started mine. And he was 22, I was 19, and we're both on finance floors, big trading room floors. So it's very, very similar world, very similar markets. He was in America, I was in Australia, but that market, that industry, I get sort of swept into that culture of it. And before long, I was doing a lot of drugs and drinking and just being a real cowboy. Some might say a real dickhead, but
you're 19.
Yeah,
you can't hold it against yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And so I kind of went down that path for a while, and that sort of really started to show up in my nervous system. And what started to happen over time was I was getting these very strong, extreme stress responses showing up in my body. And I want to clarify here that a stress response is a symptom. And we get many, many different types of symptoms, which is the body showing us a result, a reaction, an effect from the way we're living life. And so I was getting anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and natural tendencies to sort of medicate that, or use. For me, it was a lot of recreational drugs and drinking. But that just exacerbated, just got worse and worse. And eventually in 1996, it just culminated into a really sort of, I guess it was clinically diagnosed as a nervous breakdown. So things were pretty bad. I was, couldn't stop crying, couldn't go to work. I was having extreme anxiety, extreme panic attacks. I was very incapacitated, sent to doctors, psychiatrists, put on suicide watch. And it was in this time I developed agoraphobia. And just so people know, agoraphobia is such an extreme stress response in your body that the idea of walking out front of your house is just too much. So you stay in this really safe space, this very sort of cocoon space, and everything else is just too overwhelming. And here I was a broker on international markets, and I couldn't even leave the house. So I was taking time off work. I developed agoraphobia. I was sitting at home in 1996, and I was watching TV at that time, and there was a documentary about a property developer and his success, and how good he was. And there was a really tiny part of that story how he meditated, and he used meditation, and they used this word transcendental meditation. And I'd never heard of it. I had no idea what it was, but it was really strange because me doing a lot of drugs, particularly in the rave culture, was about transcending, about having this sort of otherworld experience. Excuse me. And when I heard this idea of transcending, I'm like, wow, that sounds so cool. And they showed him meditating in a suit, but he wasn't doing like mudras, and he wasn't lotus. He was just a business guy in a suit. And it really resonated with me. It was like exactly what I needed to see right there. And it was in that moment that I started to look up meditation and start to look into meditation. And it was the beginning of my journey into mindfulness and spirituality and Eastern philosophy.
Wow.
Excuse me.
So you've been doing it a really long time now, and how do you find, like, from where you were in this period of very heightened stress and anxiety and the stress response that you said, how did it change initially, and sort of how has it continued to change for you over time?
Yeah, we go through stages of how meditation will impact us. And the first step in the process that generally most of my students, and myself included, experience is a lot of the pain points just melt away. And for me, some of the biggest pain points, I had chronic insomnia. And this was the compounding thing. When you have a lot of anxiety, a lot of addictions, you develop insomnia, which compounds your nervous system not being able to heal. So you're on a sort of quite a spiral down. And so the first week was just mind-blowing. I was falling asleep. And this is what I see a lot of my students. They start sleeping better very, very quickly because the nervous system is so hyperstimulated, and there's so much cortisol in the system that the melatonin just can't get through. It can't affect the body in a way that allows the body to go into sleep because it's just too much cortisol, which is where a lot of the world's at now. And I had so much cortisol in my system that I couldn't sleep. But then as soon as I started meditating, that cortisol pump gets turned off. And the sleep just came. It was really beautiful to be able to find my body resting for long periods of time was awesome. And then a lot of the anxiety, the depression just melted away. All of those anomalies of a sympathetic nervous system state started to shift as I moved my body through the meditation into parasympathetic nervous system. So these were the initial changes that sort of unfolded over a few months. And then as years went by, I started doing retreats and doing more advanced programs and really exploring the philosophy of it all. What happens then is as the pain points start melting away, then you start opening up your consciousness, your awareness, and you start experiencing heightened levels of bliss, greater levels of love. You start to get a lot more in flow with life, less pushing. It's almost like instead of trying to, the way I liken this is instead of swimming upstream, you just let go and start swimming downstream and let yourself be in this flow of life. It becomes a lot less chaotic. Certainly not perfect, and you don't become perfect, but life gets easier and more in flow. That's generally the way it goes.
And I think that's one of the sort of myths, and what deters some people from meditation is that they think you just walk around in this blissed out state all the time, like peace, love, and fairy bread or whatever. But rather it's just more of a, what I say, it's like I cope better in life because of it.
Yeah, because I think two things.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I think we cope better in life, and we become better people as well. I think there's two things. We cope better, and the innate qualities of you, which is innate for us to be kind, to be caring, to be compassionate, to be loving, to be lighter. These innate qualities start to become more expressed through our vessels. I think that's our thinking mind, our feeling body, and our physical form. It starts to express more of that. So we start to become more of our truth and less of our distorted self, less of our programmed self.
That's a great way to put it. I was sort of, for me, because my kind of crash, our stories sound very similar, even though they were from completely different external forces. Mine was, as you know, when I had my third baby. And so for me, all that, what you just said about the kindness and the love, I hadn't even really realized it, but it was just almost like a side effect of coping better in life. It's
Mhm.
that was, you know, I, with my children, with other people, with my poor husband, you know, just become, yeah, more loving, more kind. And that's been a wonderful side effect for me as well. The other thing that it has really done for me is it's created a mental space that in motherhood many mothers struggle with. It's just like it's almost like when I was at my depths, I felt like my brain was inflamed. I felt like there was so much going on that I couldn't. It was literally knee jerk reactions to everything, and so the meditation gave me the space. Initially for me, it was within the meditation, and then you know the effects take time to follow on. Where I suddenly felt like the weight, the inflammation was going away. You know, I'm not saying that I became magically a better mother, but I just the mental space got elongated, I suppose.
Yeah, we create gaps. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's exactly that. There's because we've got our thinking mind, which we think is us, and then we've got consciousness behind that, which is the awareness of the thinking mind. And so consciousness and thinking mind are two very different things. And Descartes, the French philosopher, obviously not a meditator, said, I think, therefore I am. So he identified his amness, his existence, as the thinker. But we know that that thinking mind is deeply coded, deeply conditioned, deeply programmed, and actually, to some degree, quite confused because, you know, someone can say to your thinking mind, you're an amazing person. And the thinking mind goes, well, I must be amazing. And someone says, you're an absolute arsehole. And the thinking mind says, oh, maybe I'm an arsehole. And so it's very confused about its identity, and it feeds on a lot of information and feedback from external world. But consciousness itself is your awareness of presence, your awareness of existence. And it's likened to the blue sky being the awareness and the clouds being your thinking mind, which are constantly changing. And so what we want to do is be able to access the awareness of consciousness that can then observe our thinking mind and our physical body and the actions that we're taking, and start to go, there's a little gap that happens up and goes, before you do that action, before you have that thought, is that relevant? Is that moving you to your highest joy? Is that the right thing to do?
Yeah. Or is it a good reaction in response to something my child has done, for instance, as well? And that's what I teach as well with my clients, is about creating this, you know, elongating this mental space, and literally, without sounding all woo woo, but changing your brain by doing that. And meditation plays a huge part in that as well. So yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Um, in your book and in the movie, The Portal, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, you talk about, now I might pronounce this wrong, a Rashi, or is it Rashi?
Rashi, yeah, that's right.
And about it being this huge, powerful event in your life. It's a Sanskrit word, where a person either learns a new way to move forward or turmoil happens. They, you know, sort of, yeah, is that the best way to describe it? Like there's a catastrophe. And I was, when I was reading that, I was like, that is, in a sense, motherhood. Like when you become a mother, it's this crazy, powerful event. What I loved, what you wrote in the book, was when you said, and even though it means catastrophe and maybe something negative, why don't we use these experiences and these events to create something that is powerful and beautiful? And that I just love that in the forms, you know, thinking about motherhood again, that we have this enormous event and we can't even really predict how it's going to affect us, and using that as a catalyst to create a beautiful life for ourselves. And I think that meditation plays a huge part in that.
Yeah, you know, we have these experiences in life that come along and they're defining moments. And, you know, some will say that we're going through one now on the planet right now. People keep asking me if this is a Rashi. A Rashi is definitive in that it gives you the option of only one of two ways forward. You can't keep doing the same thing. So you can keep doing the same thing and have a lot of turbulence, or you then meet a fork in the road. Now, fork in the road means you must deviate. You either go left or right. You can't go straight. And what we've been doing for a long time is we've been going straight. And so the same with motherhood, you know, you can go straight, but then there is a left or right. It's like, you know, you go into complete abject misery and turmoil, or you go into a higher level of order and cohesiveness and harmony. And so we've got to look at where are we at? Are we in turmoil? And if we're in turmoil, how do we get to higher levels of greater harmony, greater levels of cohesiveness, greater levels of order? And that obviously then self promotes love and kindness and greater qualities. And meditation helps us to de-excite from the chaos that's happening and to get into a state of awareness, to be able to see the situation from a macro perspective, to step out of being in the situation and then observe the situation and then start to get these cognitions and insights and then find a way forward that's going to be more progressive. And we see this in companies, in relationships, in people's health, in civilizations itself. And humanity really is getting close to a major rashi, which will be either self-termination or evolution to an enlightened planet. However, the current status quo can't sustain itself and is a self-terminating status quo. So that system that we're in has to change definitively for us to get to an enlightened planet.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be nice? Hopefully,
it would be nice, wouldn't it?
You're doing a great job. What you're doing to get us there. So that's wonderful. So would you say that when you became a dad, you've got 19-year-old twins? Would you say that was a rashi for you?
I wouldn't say it was a rashi going through becoming a parent, because it was a joyful process for me. It wasn't, there was times when you're tired and exhausted, and you both your partner and yourself can get antagonized or go through some difficult times. But it wasn't necessarily being a parent or me personally becoming a dad a rashi. It was a really beautiful process and a really beautiful experience. But I'd been meditating for quite a long time, admittedly. So that was one thing that I think we had in our advantage. Particularly my wife was breastfeeding twins 2 or 3 times a night per kid. So she'd be up some nights 6 times breastfeeding. So, her ability to sleep was quite limited while we're in that kind of crazy window of time. And one of the things that really was quite a godsend really was the fact that while she was breastfeeding, in the dark of the night, she would be meditating. And that really allowed her to find some physiological rest, even though she was still awake. And we've been proven in scientific studies and medical studies that when we're in a deep meditation experience, the physiological levels of rest are 4 times deeper than sleep. So you can actually have a really deep experience of rest in your body while you're meditating. So that really helped her. But also biochemically, it was a big thing for her, because when we meditate, it's been proven you produce more oxytocin. And oxytocin is the biochemical for love. And this is a big challenge with a lot of mums who have gone through very turbulent, firstly, very turbulent pregnancy, might be really hard. Then you have a really intense birthing process. For some mothers, it could go for days, and that's really, really full on. And then all of a sudden they give you this 1 or 2 little, meatballs that says, okay, you've got to keep them alive, and, they're going to be crying, and you're going to have to change nappies and breastfeed them or feed them through the night and have very little sleep. It's like, how's anyone supposed to survive that? So to be able to, because what's going to happen then, your body's going to be so deteriorated that your serotonin and oxytocin levels are going to drop very low. For some mothers, they can really, particularly if they're a stressed type of person that worries and gets very fastidious about parenting. Some mothers, it's just a breeze and they're just like, whatever, it'll be good. And they have very different biochemical makeup as a result of their perspective of the world. Whereas people that get a little bit more anxious and a little bit more uptight about things and want to control things more, they're going to have depleted levels of serotonin and oxytocin. And so therefore, their levels of happiness and levels of harmony, levels of health are going to be affected. And so meditation really helps to reboot those levels of serotonin and oxytocin so they can have greater levels of bonding and connection with their children.
And like you said, like these are scientifically proven studies. Like this isn't just people saying this is how it makes you feel. It's actually been proven time and time again that meditation scientifically improves your health, physical and mental, which is the important part as well. So yeah, I'm all for it. I always say to mothers when I speak to them, do you meditate? And if they say no, then I say, well, I think that would be one of the first things that you should do is find a meditation practice that suits you. And we speak about what you teach and what I learned from you, and then I try and get them to go down that path because it is so important, and there's nothing woo-woo about it at all. It's actually just another tool in the toolkit of motherhood, I think.
Yeah, it blows me away that, even when you go to prenatal classes, that there's just so little emphasis on the emotional well-being of the parents. And that's everything for the children. Everything's going to flow from the state that they're in. Even the milk production and the ability for them to go back to sleep or to integrate as a couple together and be united and to connect with their child. And really, it still surprises me to this day with the amount of scientific research that's out that we're not incorporating meditation courses or the importance of meditation into prenatal classes so that they know and they're well equipped to cope and survive through this very precarious time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the welfare of the parent in general, it is not discussed very much at all. And my philosophy is that if the mother thrives, her children will thrive, the world will thrive. And so if we can look after the mother in whatever capacity that is, and I think meditation is a big part of it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you, I say that to everyone. Then, that we get the mothers thriving, the world will be a completely different place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important.
Yeah.
That should be like the foundation of what we're doing with our society right now.
Yeah, and I try and encourage mothers, if I speak with pregnant mothers, to learn before they have the baby, so that the practice is in place and that it's something that literally it's like a tool that you can just call upon, rather than, where will I find the time to, do a course or to even just get into the habit of it? Because at the end of the day, meditation is a habit, and in a good sense, and like taking a shower, I just don't miss it. It's just part of my daily routine. And I think to get a habit like that ingrained, it needs to be almost solidified before the baby comes along. That's how I feel anyway. But let's talk about the portal very quickly. I had the pleasure of watching the portal recently after reading your book, and I just love the story, the sentiment behind it, what you're doing with it. Can you just tell us just a very brief what it's about?
Yeah, I guess we really wanted to convey through film and book the importance of how meditation can move us out of crisis and back into harmony, back into flow. And so we found 6 stories from around the world that have all had their own crisis. And we looked at different demographics, different, cultural sort of backgrounds that would really cover a broad spectrum of society, so that everyone could find a character, at least one or two, that they could relate to and say, oh my God, that's me. And so we have these 6 characters that we sort of journey through from their childhood conditioning and what leads to their crisis and that program and indoctrination. And so we follow these stories, and then we meet them in there, all of them together in a meditation. And then we see them, come out of that and their life change quite dramatically. So we've got the micro, which is the individual stories. And then we've got the macro, which are 3 futurists that are very wise people that have a profound viewpoint on the world, where we are, how we got here, and what's ahead for us. And so we look at the macro perspective of our own humanitarian crisis and how we can potentially get through that by shifting our mindset, shifting our consciousness. So it's kind of micro and macro that we cover in the film and the book.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, and I love how you combine the two, because I think it's really important. But we have to, we can only change ourselves at this point in time, so we have to start with ourselves, and I think that's a really important message in there as well. There's so many things that I've taken out of the book and the movie that I wanted to talk to you about.
Sure,
but there was one thing, and I'm probably going to say her name as well. It was Amandine?
Amandine, yeah.
Amandine. And she said, you cannot create outer peace. You cannot create outer peace if you don't focus on inner peace first. And I think that was from the Dalai Lama. She got that from? Is that right?
Yeah, she's referencing Dalai Lama in that, yeah.
Dalai Lama. And I was just thinking that is so true. Like, we can only, because in this world where we're all overstimulated really with all the external and I don't like this and I don't like that, and we don't come back to ourselves. And so if we want to make a change, we have to start with ourselves. And I've noticed in my home, when I'm in a good space and I'm feeling calm and I feel peaceful, that my children are that way. And I don't think it's just my perception. I think that they actually, they carry that on. And same with joy and happiness. If I feel happy, they're happy. And that's very much also where my work comes from. Like I said, get the mother to thrive, and then the children will thrive automatically. And I thought that was such a wonderful thing to take away from the book and the movie, that, you know, it all starts with us. We have to start with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a simple principle. It comes back to, you know, when the air stewardesses or flight attendants are giving you the instructions, you know, if the masks drop down, put yours on first. And it might sound selfish, but I want us all listening in to think of ourselves as like a Wi-Fi modem. And a Wi-Fi modem sending out signals, and that's what our body's doing. It's emitting a frequency. And those frequencies have different varying sort of what we call hertz, which is Hertz, a frequency to it. So if you're angry, stressed, tired, worn out, crotchety, grumpy, anxious, then that's going to emit into the environment that you're existing within. And if you're in a state of bliss, calm, and lovingness, then that's going to emit into the frequency, into the room that you're, or the existence that you're sort of coexisting within. And so if we really want to bring about change, it's exactly what Armandine's talking about, is that if we want to change our external world, we have to change our internal world and be mindful and sovereign within that. But what most of us lose is our sovereignty. So we're affected by the external world, which is affecting our internal world. And now we're a victim, we've lost our sovereignty. And we say, well, that made me feel this way, or you made me feel that way. And so we don't have any autonomy here. We've lost that, and we're just at this random mercy of inconsistent events around us and other people around us affecting us. So yeah, the key here is that we've got to learn to tap into what's innate within us, tap into that beautiful quality within us, and start with that first.
And our awareness. And I think Jackie said in the book, she had a quote about awareness is the first step of change. And I think, you know, like you sort of, when you were talking then, I imagined us bouncing around like a pinball, you know, in a pinball machine. And it is a bit like that. And so to come back and go, hang on, back into myself, garner some awareness, and then that is the first step for change. Because if we're just reacting and bouncing around, then nothing comes from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This has been so wonderful, Tom. I could talk to you for hours, really. It's been amazing, and I just wanted to thank you very much for coming on and you know, speaking about meditation and you know, dispelling some myths around it as well, about the importance of it, and that it's, you know, it's a gift to ourselves almost, isn't it? It's a gift of ourselves which gives a gift to the world. And yeah, like I said, I encourage all the mothers that I work with to meditate. And yeah, I just, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, look, I mean, I just think we really undervalue the importance of being calm. We undervalue the importance of even feeling happy. We will be so distracted by so many things, even more so today with Netflix and phones and everything else that's going on, and news and media, that the simple art of withdrawing from all of that stimulation, withdrawing from the perceived source of happiness, you know, another scroll through our Instagram, or watching another TV series on Netflix, or devouring an hour and a half of news on TV, you know, when we can just quieten the mind and go into a place of deep blissful serenity. And if we look at any, you know, spiritual tradition or tribal culture, whatever, where they have more stillness, what we find is they have greater happiness. And there is a correlation between that. And what we're seeing here, it's quite phenomenal how do I say this politely? There's so much idiocy on the planet right now, myself included, where we're seeing increasing levels of anxiety and depression. It's just a fact. We're seeing rapidly increasing levels of anxiety and depression, suicide rates increasing, along with the increasing levels of mental stimulation, you know, phones and media. And so what we've got to redo is revalue things. We have to have a new set of values. And one of those is to value stillness, to value silence, to value solitude, to value quietness.
And to value getting to know yourself from the inside,
rather
than from what the world tells you who you are. To just...
How many likes and comments you got.
Exactly. Oh, I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not perfect. I'm
sure that Dalai Lama likes seeing how many likes he gets on his post too. Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Well, yeah, thank you, Tom. It's been wonderful, and I'd love to talk to you more. It's been really, really nice. But thank you, and the portal, entertheportal.com.
Entertheportal.com, yeah.
Entertheportal.com is where you can watch the movie and also buy the book from there.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep, buy the book from there, and I really recommend either or both. I did both, and I think they really add to each other. And yeah, I think it's, even though I'm not the guest, I think my last comment would be, find yourself a meditation practice that suits you, and that you can relate to, and that you can create a habit out of, because it will make a big difference to your life. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. This episode of the Tough Mothers podcast and Tough Mothers TV was brought to you by Tough Mothers Meditations. I really want you to experience the benefits of meditation that we were talking about in this episode. I want you to feel calm and find joy in motherhood every day. I want you to feel fulfilled even when your days are full to the brim. That's why I'm giving you free access to my morning mama meditation. This is a simple 5-minute guided meditation that will set you up for a day of calm, joy, and fulfillment, or whatever else it is you desire. I strongly encourage you to give it a try and see the benefits meditation will have on your life and motherhood. Meditation is the ultimate in self-care, and I really, really want you to thrive and be happy. That's why I'm giving all listeners free access to this special meditation. You don't need any prior meditation experience, but you will get a lot out of it even if you're already meditating. Go to toughmothers.com/meditations to access your free morning mama meditation. That's toughmothers.com, toughmothers.com/meditations, meditations. Give yourself this gift today.